Go through the full list of tools required to do all the different makes of blade replacement. You will need a couple of nut drivers. You can buy them complete like this, and they need to be either 5/16 or 8mm. Those are basically the same size. You can either buy a complete nut driver like this, or you can just buy a nut driver bit. This one is actually magnetic, which is kind of handy, and then it just goes into a screwdriver like that. The other thing that is important while we're on that is it is helpful if you take your nut driver and take it over to your grinder and grind material off it so that the wall is much thinner. You will find that sometimes, particularly when you're doing RBK skates, the goal skate, when you go to put your nut driver on this nut, you'll sometimes have interference if your socket is too thick. So that's why you would want to grind that off. It'll make the job a lot easier. The other tool that is very handy to have is a mallet. This mallet has got hard plastic and then different density of plastic on the other side. It's especially helpful for when you are installing steel into holders, especially the perforated ones where there's parts of the blade that have never been in the holder, and it will be helpful to have some extra force to get the steel to go into the holder. By using this, you will not cause any damage to the steel. If you use a metal hammer, obviously you're going to damage the blade very badly. If you try to use the back of the hammer like I used to, you'll miss and you'll cut yourself really badly and bleed all over the place. So get yourself a mallet. That's what it looks like. The other thing, when you're doing the RBK skates, once you remove the one side, once you remove the one side of the fastener, you'll sometimes need to push the fastener out. If you use too large a punch, there's a risk of damaging the thread. That's why I like to use this pointy little guy. And you could just take a small screwdriver and take it over to your grinder and grind it small like this, so it fits inside that fastener to push it out. The other thing that I find works very well is a small electric hand tool. Anything with a lithium-ion battery is going to be a small, easy to use tool. The older NiCad tools are big and cumbersome and awkward, but this makes a lot of the jobs much easier. I would definitely recommend getting yourself a little hand tool like this. And the last item, well, second last item, is a vise. A vise is like an extra pair of hands, but if you leave your vise the way it is, there's a risk of damaging the blades if you clamp the blade in and the blade moves a little bit. So what I do is I build soft jaws. Now you can buy soft jaws and that'll protect the blade, but they're hard to find. So what I've done is you just go to a home hardware store, any kind of a home improvement store, and you can buy aluminum stock. This is about 3/4 of an inch by 3/4 of an inch. It comes in probably about a 32-inch length, and you just cut it. And then once you've cut two pieces, you can get this two-sided tape. It's sticky on both sides. And you just put a little piece of two-sided tape on here, and then you just put it in your vise, clamp it tight, and it'll stay there. It won't move. That way you're not going to damage any of the blades that you clamp in here. The last tool that is really helpful to have is a Dremel tool. You can either get corded or cordless. And the important thing is you need to get these carbide burrs. You can buy these at Princess Auto. Dremel makes them as well. Really handy to have to sometimes make the attachment, particularly in the light speeds. If they're a little tight, you can just touch the blade lightly with that little bit there and it'll open it up for you. So that's pretty much all the tools you're going to need. And in our next presentation we'll start switching some blades.